Just take a look at this, right? This isn't made up. These are statistics I had in a game. Look at that. 17,368 damage as a tank in the game of Overwatch 2. This was the length of the game. 7 minutes and 28 seconds. Now, doing some quick mental math, I think that's about 2,100 or 200 damage per minute or something. Okay, granted, I had a Mercy. She was damage boosting me. But look at this game. It was a high damage game overall, but Mauga has done a considerable amount of damage compared to everybody else in the game. And he's a tank in Overwatch 2. Yeah, so my camera's broke. So whatever, just deal with it. But take a look at this. This is, well, these are my stats. I played 7 hours of Mauga. I have played, well, 34 games. I have won 27 games. I have lost 7. I have a win percentage of 79%. Yes, Mauga is absolutely broken, and Mauga has been broken since he was available in competitive. He has brought the game into utter disrepute. It's so bad with Mauga right now, and we'll get into that detail in a second. But before we do that, take a look at this, because we finally have got information that he is being nerfed, and it is coming next week. So Alec Dawson says this: they're targeting early next week for Mauga changes. What to expect? Survivability nerfs, ammo nerfs, and more. Changes may be harsher than what's necessary. Why harsher? We've had some recent tech issues, a failed nerf hotfix before break, want to be on the safe side of not strong. Now, we've got to drill down into this, because what he's saying there is they had a hotfix nerf ready to go before the Christmas or the holiday break. Now, that hotfix, if that had landed in the game, probably would have made a big difference to the hellish environment we've all been playing in recently, in which it is just Mauga versus Mauga. And if a player does not have Mauga and you do, and you're both tanks, well, then you generally win, because it is so hard to play around the Mauga, because it requires a whole team effort to deal with this guy. Unless, of course, you're some crazy top 500 players, then fair enough. We're not top 500 players, we're normal players, and the fact is, the reality we're living in is this: Mauga needs to focus on the enemy Mauga. The reason why is because you need that sustain from doing damage. So if you stop firing at the enemy Mauga, well, then, and he's continuing to fire at you, you do not get the sustain. He does, and then the balance is tipped in his favor. However, if he's got supports that are, well, you know, generally supporting him, and you don't, well, then you get an issue. Now, the issue gets even more complex when we throw in different heroes. So if the enemy Mauga has an Ana and a Kiriko, well, then the problem is, if you don't have those, if their Ana throws an anti-nade at you, you will die because their Mauga is shooting you. You need the Kiriko to cleanse the anti-nade effect off you, and if you don't have one on your team, you're going to struggle. And of course, there are cases with maybe a Zen and an Ana on the enemy team as well. They can cause problems for the Mauga. But the fact is, Mauga needs to keep shooting the enemy Mauga. And what this does to Overwatch gameplay, which is already bad for tanks, is it turns it, it reduces it to this absolute travesty of just, I don't know why this was allowed to stay how it was before the holiday break. Now, of course we do, because Alec is saying, hey, we tried to make a nerf for the hero before we went on break, but it didn't work because of some tech issues. And obviously, they're not going to go into details on what that means, and they're not even really going into details on what the nerfs were or would have been, and would they have even made a difference. It seems to me, though, that based off his tweet, what they want to do now is really nerf this hero into the abyss, is really go, you know what? Mauga is not great for Overwatch. He really isn't. I'm going to just go out there and say this, and I know if you're like me and you've played since Overwatch launched, you've played through goats, you've played through Brig being super strong at launch, you've played through a lot of kind of really bad metas. This is the worst. This is actually the worst I think I've ever experienced in the game. And I'm a tank player. I like playing tank. Look at this gameplay. This is actually my most recent Mauga game. Now, if you guys looked at the stats at the top of the video, when I spoke about how many games I've played, I've actually played more games since then. I think I'm actually on about 40 games of Mauga, so maybe I can introduce that into this. But the thing is, this is just like, it's brain dead. I mean, it's just brain dead. Look, what's going on here? You know, my team have bailed me out there. I've literally YOLO'd in and popped my ulti. The Genji's got a kill with his blade, but I was nearly dead there. But, you know, my supports managed to keep me alive. Somebody in the chat says tank diff. It's not really a tank diff. I mean, the thing is, another one of the issues with Mauga is it is straight up, it's just brain dead, right? So if the enemy team have a Mauga, you have to shoot that Mauga. You cannot ignore the Mauga and try and poke at range. And this was one of the, I guess, core or key concepts of Mauga's primary and secondary fire interaction, where the primary sets a target on fire, and then the alternate fire gets a crit wherever you hit that target from, and Mauga's passive heals him essentially through doing critical damage. So it means that you need to keep hitting targets that are on fire. But at close range, of course, you can just fire both. Like, look at this here. I've been hit with an anti-nade. I've got to run away. It's the only thing that makes me run away. Now it's okay, let's go back to the fight, but we've already lost a couple of players. Nice wall off there, May, I think, stopped our Ana. Yeah, good wall off May. So without that, I'm just going to die. You know, all I'm doing is staying in line of sight of my Ana and my supports, and I'm just shooting their tank. This is like the most literal brain dead thing that's ever been put into the game. And the issue, I think, kind of goes back to the design of this hero. And when I'm trying to think, like, why would Blizzard launch the hero in this state? Like, what were they thinking, right? They've obviously seen there are problems with this hero. They obviously wanted to change these, but they couldn't for technical reasons, which I still find a little bit crazy, because surely these are just stat changes, right, in a spreadsheet. Now, I'm distilling that down to like some stupid level. I'm sure it's not. But just go into the Mauga spreadsheet and kind of go damage equals this, you know, reduce the ammo, reduce the lifesteal, and okay, let's let Mauga carry on. The other issue is, with Mauga being so strong, he forces a certain style of gameplay. He forces the Ana, he forces the Kiriko. Now, if you don't have them on your team, you are really going to suffer, and that's not particularly great. But when we look at the matchups with other tanks, Mauga literally deletes every single tank in the game, apart from a Mauga. Yes, you can play around him with a Sigma, and there probably will be, well, there probably isn't, but if there is some insane top 500 players watching this video, I know what you're going to say. You're going to go, well, actually, you can kind of play around this with Sigma. You kind of can, right? Look, again, I've been bailed out by my awesome life weave or whatever. I'll just YOLO back in. You can kind of play around him with Sigma, and the reason for that is Sigma can alternate his suck and his barrier and try and eat up the damage of the Mauga. Now, there is this idea of, there is give and take, right? So a hero can't be strong all of the time. There needs to be a window to outplay that hero. If you use the Sigma example, you would go, okay, Sigma's used his suck. We know he doesn't have suck now, but he might still have barrier, but we know he doesn't have suck, so we can put pressure on him. An even more simplistic example of that is Zarya. Zarya's used both her bubbles, which is still, you know, this isn't like in the Overwatch 1 world where she just had one bubble and it was like, oh, she's used a bubble, so bubble down, just kill her. No, she's got two bubbles now, so she could potentially use two on herself, you don't know. But at least when you see her using her, you know that's a bit of a power gone. You know a window of opportunity is opening up to damage the hero. Again, a little bit of a long-winded explanation there, but the thing with Mauga is, where's that window of opportunity? Does anybody know? Does anybody know where... I don't even know how I got back in here, but whatever. Does anyone know where that is? Well, the only window of opportunity with Mauga is when he's anti-naded. But he needs to be attacked by another Mauga, because when he's anti-naded, he's still doing massive amounts of damage. Anyone near him is just going to die. He's probably just going to run away if he can, and that's probably going to allow anti-nade to disappear. But the issue is, it's always this interaction between your Mauga, their Mauga, point-blank range, waiting for the anti-nade. The anti-nade comes in, you know you're going to win that fight. It relies on your Ana. It is the most brain-dead version of gameplay this game has ever had. This isn't a tank hero. It's a DPS hero. I think that has been built because they wanted the hero with two chain guns, because that's Mauga's style. And guess what? We need him to be a tank because, look, he's a massive guy. We're going to give him loads of health. He's going to be awesome. He's going to feel great to play. Now, sure, he does sort of feel great to play in terms of the sort of rush you get when you're firing both the chain guns. But in practice, it's just, it isn't really Overwatch tank play. And this goes into a wider debate about losing the identity of tanks in Overwatch. What is a tank hero? You know, are they meant to be brawlers? Are they meant to be like Reinhardt? You know, you look at Sigma, you look at Ramatra, they're poke tanks. You look at Junker Queen, she's a brawler tank. I think you should look at Junker Queen more so as the template for brawler tanks, not Mauga. Mauga is the idea of a brawler tank that is unkillable, that does like crazed amounts of damage, that forces the game to be played in a certain way, and it simply can't go on. But the good news is, it is not going to go on. Blizzard are going to make these changes. And like I've said a few times throughout this video, it is kind of sad that they haven't made these changes sooner, but we now know they are making these changes. I'd go even further and sort of say, you know, why didn't they say before the break, you know what, guys, we've got a nerf to Mauga, but actually we can't implement it, because then that maybe would have helped the community. That maybe could have even been an example of good quality communication. Instead, we've been left to sort of go like, okay, well, we're going to nerf him, that we know now, but the wider player base were not aware of that until we got this tweet today. We were just living in this world of Mauga, and we're like, what are they going to do? How are they going to nerf him? Now, to go back to what Alex said, it looks like they're going to heavily nerf him. And I think this is the right thing, because we've seen the game played with Mauga at this power level. He cannot remain at this power level. And I'm also going to say something a little bit more controversial here. I don't think this hero belongs in the game at all. This hero needs to be nerfed and needs to not really be viable unless he only works in certain team comps, because what he's doing to the game is pushing it in a direction we really don't want to go into. Now, there was a lot of discussion about Overwatch 2 becoming more of a shooter game and less of a MOBA game. Mauga has obviously been in development for a long time, most probably around the time those sort of things were being said. So you've got a tank that is straight up a FPS tank. You are shooting stuff, you've got good poke at sort of medium range, especially when you use your primary fire into your alternate fire. But again, this goes back to the idea of tanks, doesn't it? What is the idea of a tank in Overwatch 2? You've got poke tanks, you've got brawler tanks. I guess you could maybe throw shield tanks in. And then you've got Mauga, which just beats everyone, right? So, oh, and you've got dive tanks as well. How could I forget Winston? Which, by the way, this hero deletes Winston, and Winston should never be deleted. In fact, there is an argument that heroes like, well, Winston, not heroes like Winston, but Winston, when he is powerful and Winston is actually being used, then the game's in a pretty good state. I don't know. Also, D.Va as well. I think she's pretty cool. But anyway, I think Blizzard need to nerf him. They're going to do that. This is good news. I think Junker Queen should be the template for brawler tanks going forward, because she's not overly oppressive. She's got some annoyances to her, but she's not Mauga. Nobody has ever been this powerful in the game. Anyway, take a look at this. This was the last game I played before recording this video. Look at the chat. There is still hope in this world. The player base, when they want to do it, they are beautiful in Overwatch 2. This is the first Rhine game, like Rhine versus Rhine, I have played in Overwatch 2 this season. Not in Overwatch 2, full stop. That's a bit of a statement. But in Overwatch 2 in this season, because everyone just plays Mauga. I'd come out the gates here, and if he was a Mauga, I'd have been very disappointed, but he was not. He was already a Rhine. It was awesome. And then look at this. We actually win. Look at the chat. Great game. People actually saying thanks, honor the tanks. This game was great. Thanks for letting us play Overwatch again and seeing what it could be like. And the devs know this, right? And that's why I think they're just going to destroy Mauga. And I think that's okay for the game. We've all had our fun. They've all solved their battle passes. So let's just move on. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll catch you lot on the next video. And leave a comment if you need to. See you soon.